9 o'clock. Front row. I'm almost there, Avery.
Front row.
Front row. I promised.
Sir, you okay out there?
Yes, ma'am. Just waiting.
Turn around. Officer, may I ask why?
Because I told you to.
My ID is in my briefcase. You can verify me with the courthouse.
Don't tell me what I can do.
Not resisting. You're not cooperating. I gave you my name. You gave me a story. He didn't do anything. Another. Don't get involved. Call the federal courthouse.
The federal courthouse?
Ask for Peter Gaines or Judge Whitcomb's chambers. People always have important names when cuffs come out. Check before you decide that.
Officer, he was just waiting.
Stay on your route.
He bought coffee from me. You making a statement? Someone should record this.
I already am.
You really think one phone call changes this? It could have. Get in the car. Then make sure the record shows you refused to call.
Did you hear that?
He was waiting at a bus stop in a wrinkled blue suit, one hand pressed over the photo in his coat pocket, when Officer Caleb Voss told him to turn around. The rain had just started. The camera on a nearby bakery sign blinked red. Why would a quiet black man with no record be handcuffed for standing still? Why did every witness look away when he calmly said, "Call the federal courthouse"? And why did the officer laugh at the one sentence that could have saved them all? 11 hours later, the same city that ignored him would face a $5.6 million reckoning, and the truth would begin at that lonely bus stop. Rain clicked against the shelter roof like fingernails on glass. Marcus Reed kept his shoulders still while Officer Caleb Voss tightened the second cuff one notch too far. The metal bit through his damp blue sleeve. Water ran onto his knuckles, cold enough to make the skin pull tight. "Name," Voss said. "Marcus Reed." "Address." Marcus glanced toward the bakery window. A woman in a flour-dusted apron watched from behind the glass. Above her door, a red camera light blinked. "My ID is in my briefcase," Marcus said. "Verify me with the courthouse." Voss laughed. "Everybody's federal when they don't want trouble. I'm not asking you to take my word for it. No, you're telling me how to do my job." A bus sighed at the curb. Its driver, gray in his beard, opened the door, but kept everyone waiting. "Officer?" the driver called. He was just standing there. "You want to join the conversation?" "Just saying what I saw." "Then get back behind the wheel." Shoes scuffed wet concrete. Someone lowered a phone. The crowd became a row of turned faces. Officer Mara Klein stood by the patrol car, rain darkening her uniform. Her eyes dropped to the brown briefcase beside the bench. "Caleb," she said, "we should check the ID." "I've got him." Marcus shifted his wrists. The cuffs dragged a cold line along his skin. In his coat pocket, the photograph pressed against his chest. Avery at 13 with a mock trial certificate. Purple words on the back. "Dad, front row always." "My daughter is expecting me in court at 9, Marcus said. Voss smirked. "We all have places to be. I need one phone call. You need to stop performing." Voss guided him toward the patrol car with 2 fingers at the elbow, public enough to show who controlled the sidewalk. "You were reported loitering and refusing to identify. I identified myself. You gave me a story." The bakery door opened with a bell. Warm yeast and coffee spilled into the rain. The woman in the apron stepped out. "Officer, he bought coffee from me," she said. "He asked for directions to the courthouse." Voss read her name tag. "Lena, right? You making a statement?" Her mouth opened. "Reports mean court," Voss said. "Court means missing work." Lena looked from Voss to Marcus. Then another customer pushed the door wider, and she stepped back. Marcus gave her the smallest nod. Not forgiveness, just a way out she had taken. A phone rose beside the bus door. "Put that away," Voss snapped. The driver lowered it, but not before the screen caught Marcus in profile. Mara came closer. Sergeant Pike says, bring him in if we can't confirm on scene. Marcus looked at her. Ask him to call Peter Gaines or Judge Whitcomb's chambers. Voss shook his head. Judges now. The rear door opened. The smell of vinyl and old disinfectant rolled out. Marcus bent his head before Voss could touch him. His knee met the hard seat, and the photograph in his pocket folded under the buckle. Please don't leave my briefcase in the rain, he said. Mara hesitated. Voss shut the door. Through the streaked window, Marcus saw his briefcase still on the pavement. The left latch had sprung open. A cream-colored folder had slipped halfway out, Federal seal facing up toward the rain. At 6:18 a.m., the apartment kettle clicked off before the sky had turned gray. Marcus Reed stood in his kitchen holding a blue tie he had owned for 12 years. Steam lifted from a chipped mug. Rain tapped the fire escape in uneven bursts. You picked the old suit, Avery said through the phone. Marcus looked at the blue jacket hanging over the chair. It still knows how to behave in court. It has a shine on the elbow. That is called experience. That is called denial. He smiled. On the table lay 2 folders, a bus schedule, and the photograph he kept in his inside pocket. Avery at 13, holding a crooked certificate from her first mock trial. On the back, in purple marker, she had written, Dad, front row always. You don't have to take the bus, Avery said. I can ask Peter to send a car. No. Dad, I'm walking the route from the report. You already wrote the report. I wrote what people told me. Today I want to see what they stand beside when the rain starts. For a second, only the line hummed. Somewhere on Avery's end, a courthouse elevator chimed. My argument is at 9, she said. I know. You said front row. Marcus slid the photograph into the pocket over his heart. The paper edge caught against the lining, then settled flat. I will sit where you can see me. Promise. Promise. A knock landed on his door. 2 sharp taps, then 1 careful one. Ruth Bell, 63, stood in the hall wearing a violet rainbonnet and carrying a paper bag. You leaving without breakfast again? She asked. I have oatmeal. You have a box with dust in it. She set the bag on the counter. Corn muffins. Avery's voice came from the phone. Miss Ruth, make him eat. Ruth leaned toward the speaker. Baby, I have been trying since your mother left me in charge. The kitchen went still. The refrigerator hummed. Rainwater ticked in the gutter. Marcus folded the bus schedule once more. Ruth softened. Your girl sounds ready. She is. And you? Marcus picked a crumb from the table. I missed too many small moments when she was younger. Work made every emergency sound larger than home. You were keeping people out of cages who didn't belong there. That didn't make empty chairs full. Ruth opened the bag, and the warm smell of butter moved through the room. Avery cleared her throat. Dad, I said it because today matters. He slipped a muffin into his briefcase beside a sealed envelope marked Greyhaven Transit Stops. Field Notes. His badge remained in the inner leather slot, hidden unless someone opened it properly. Authority on display made people talk differently. Text me when you reach the courthouse, Avery said. I will. The call ended, but Marcus kept the phone in his hand until the screen went black. Ruth watched him from the doorway, keys jingling softly. You ever think calm can scare people? She asked. Only the people who need noise. She looked at his briefcase. Then be careful around noisy men. At 7:04, Marcus locked the apartment. The hall smelled of floor wax and old radiator heat. He touched the photograph through the coat and listened to buses groan awake below, one of them waiting on a route that would carry him past the corner his report had named. At 6:57, Officer Caleb Voss slapped the lid onto his coffee and missed the rim. A brown crescent ran over his knuckles. He hissed and looked around Greyhaven South Station as if someone had done it to him. The briefing room smelled of burnt coffee, damp wool, and lemon cleaner. Fluorescent lights buzzed above 6 metal chairs. Officer Mara Klein set citations beside him. "You okay?" "Fine. You're bleeding coffee." "It's hot, Mara. That's what coffee does." She slid him a napkin. Voss pressed it to his fingers, jaw tight. On the wall screen, complaint summaries glowed under Community Contact Review. His name appeared twice. Sergeant Glenn Pike entered with a folder under one arm and a peppermint clicking between his teeth. He was broad, silver at the temples, and carried aftershave strong enough to beat the room into order. "Eyes up," Pike said. Chairs scraped. Radios crackled low. "We've got the transit corridor detail," Pike said. "Federal Courthouse, Market Street, Station Plaza. People are jumpy because some committee wants numbers by Friday." Mara glanced at the screen. Community Contact Review isn't a committee. Pike turned slowly. "It is paperwork with a nicer coat." A few officers chuckled. Voss did not. He stared at his own name. Pike tapped the folder. "We handle calls clean. We don't create theater. We don't feed phones. If someone complains, you write the facts before they write a story." Voss lifted his cup. The cardboard bent under his grip. "And if somebody refuses ID," he asked, "then you control the scene." Mara looked at him. Control doesn't always mean cuffs. Pike's peppermint stopped. "It means the public sees you making decisions." Outside, rain dragged silver lines down the glass. Voss watched a bus turn beyond the lot, its brake lights red in the mist. Pike moved to him after the others gathered their gear. "You saw the notice?" "What notice?" "Don't play dumb with me." Voss crushed the napkin in his fist. Pike lowered his voice. "Internal Review wants 3 months of your pedestrian stops. That does not mean they own your shift. Keep your stops short, clean, boring." "Somebody's digging." "Everybody digs. Most find mud and call it evidence." Mara zipped her jacket nearby. Voss said, "What if they send someone to test us?" Pike smiled without warmth. "Then don't fail on camera." The dispatch speaker popped. "Unit 12, report of a suspicious male lingering near the eastbound bus stop at Jefferson and Market. Caller says subject is watching courthouse traffic. Blue suit, carrying a briefcase." Voss looked at Mara. "That's our corridor," he said. Mara took the keys from the hook. "We ask questions first." "We always do." His coffee trembled in the cup holder as they pulled out. Mara noticed because the lid clicked against the plastic again and again, a small, hard sound under the wipers. "You heard Pike?" he said. "Short, clean, boring." Mara watched rain flatten the flags outside the courthouse. "Then let's not turn a man at a bus stop into a problem." Voss did not answer. The patrol car rolled through the green light, and the radio crackled with the caller's last detail. "He keeps touching his coat pocket," dispatch said, "like he's hiding something." At 7:21, a delivery truck hissed through a puddle and sprayed cold water over Marcus Reed's shoes. The shelter at Jefferson and Market stood under a maple with yellow leaves pasted to the sidewalk. Marcus checked the folded ticket in his palm. Eastbound, 7:34. He set his briefcase on the bench and opened a folder. A nursing assistant's statement lay on top, then a photograph of the same stop at dusk. Poor lighting, no posted complaint number, one private camera above the bakery sign. The bakery bell rang. "Coffee still warm?" Lena Ortiz called, flour on her apron. Still working, Marcus said. She glanced at his papers. People don't ask about camera angles unless something bad happened. Sometimes you ask before it happens again. Rain ticked on the plastic roof. Marcus held the ticket between 2 fingers. The edge softened. Lena looked past him. Her face changed. A patrol car rolled to the curb without siren. Officer Caleb Voss stepped out first, rain bright on his shoulders. Officer Mara Klein came around the other side, scanning the bench and street. "Morning," Voss said. "You waiting for something?" Marcus looked at the bus sign. "The bus? Going where?" "The courthouse." "What business?" "Officer, am I being detained?" Voss smiled. "I asked what business. May I ask what this is about?" "We got a call. Man matching your description. Lingering. Watching courthouse traffic. Carrying a briefcase." Voss tilted his head. "That familiar?" "I am standing at a bus stop with a briefcase." "Show me ID." "It's in the briefcase." "Then open it." Marcus looked at Voss's hands. One hovered near his belt. "I will, if you allow me to reach for it." "You need permission now?" "With officers present, yes." Mara stepped closer. "Caleb, let him show it." "Sir, step away from the case." Marcus moved half a pace back. The shelter wall touched his shoulder, cold through the suit. "Officer," Lena said, "he bought coffee. He asked directions, that's all." Voss turned toward her. "Did I ask for a witness statement?" Her hand closed around the doorframe. Flour whitened her knuckles. "No?" "Then don't make one." The bus appeared at the corner, headlights blurred. Marcus lifted the ticket, but the damp paper folded over his fingers. Voss pointed at the glass. "Hands where I can see them." "They are visible." "On the glass." Mara's voice tightened. "Caleb." "On the glass," Voss repeated. Marcus placed both hands against the rain-cold pane. The ticket stuck beneath his left thumb, then slid down the glass in a gray smear. The bus door side open. Deshaun Cole leaned from the driver's seat, gray beard damp from the window. "Everything all right here?" Voss did not turn fully. "Move along." Marcus watched his reflection. Blue suit, dark at the cuffs, briefcase out of reach, courthouse behind him, and unreachable. Above Lena's doorway, the bakery camera blinked red. Deshaun kept the bus in place. "Sir," Marcus said quietly. "Note the time." Voss stepped closer. "You giving orders to my witness now?" "I'm preserving facts." A woman under a black umbrella slowed, saw his hands on the glass, then crossed the street before reaching the stop. Lena's lips parted, but only the bakery bell moved once. Rainwater crawled down the glass between Marcus's fingers. "Turn around," Voss said. Marcus kept his palms flat. "Before you place me in custody, check my identification." "You asked twice, because it has not been checked once." The bus idled at the curb, engine coughing into the cold morning. Mara stood near the bench, eyes on the briefcase. "My credentials are in the inner pocket," Marcus said. "There is also a packet for Judge Whitcomb's chambers." Voss laughed once. "Now we've got a judge." Mara shifted. "Caleb, let me open the case." "No. It takes 10 seconds. It takes 1 second for a man to claim a title and make you hesitate." Marcus lowered one hand an inch. "Don't move." The command cracked across the shelter. Lena flinched in the bakery doorway. Behind her, a paper cup slid from the counter. "I am not reaching," Marcus said. "I am complying." "You're correcting me." "I'm making the record clear." Voss stepped close enough that Marcus felt breath on his neck. "There is no record out here." Marcus saw the bakery sign reflected in the wet glass. The small red light blinked. There is always a record. Voss took his left wrist. The cuff closed with a bright metallic click. The shelter smelled of wet plastic, diesel, and coffee grounds. His reflection bent in the rain-striped glass. Mara reached for her radio. "I'm calling this as pending ID verification." Voss glanced back. "Call Pike. Tell him the subject refuses lawful commands." Marcus's right wrist came back. The second cuff was colder. It caught the edge of his shirt cuff and scraped beneath the fabric. "Sergeant Pike should call Peter Gaines at the courthouse," Marcus said. Voss leaned toward his ear. "Say one more important name, and I add obstruction." Deshawn stepped off the bus. "Officer, he was waiting like everybody else." Voss pointed to the open door. "Back on your route." A woman inside the bus lifted her phone. Voss looked up, and the screen disappeared into her coat sleeve. Mara spoke into the radio. "Sergeant, adult male at Jefferson and Market. Claims federal employment. Credentials possibly in briefcase. Request permission to verify." Static cracked. Pike's voice came through, flat and impatient. "Is Voss primary?" "Yes." "Then don't stage a debate in the rain. If he can't identify in hand, transport and sort it here." Marcus closed his eyes for half a second. Avery would be looking toward the first row now and finding the chair empty. "Officer Klein," he said, "please secure my briefcase from the rain." Voss turned him from the glass. "Walk." Lena stepped 1 foot outside. "I have a camera." Voss stopped. "Excuse me?" "The bakery camera. It points at the stop." "Good," Voss said. "Then it will show him being difficult." Lena's hand stayed on the doorframe. Flour whitened her knuckles. Mara bent and picked up the briefcase. A cream folder had shifted open, showing a dark blue seal and the words U.S. Attorney's Office beneath a smear of rain. "Car," Voss said sharply. The rear door waited open, interior light pale against the wet street. Marcus stepped from under the shelter. Behind him, the bus doors stayed open. As Voss guided him down, Marcus heard Mara whisper, "Caleb, this is federal." The bus engine kept rumbling after Marcus disappeared behind the patrol car door. Deshawn Cole held the brake and stared through the open doorway. Rain blew into the aisle, speckling the yellow line by the steps. Behind him, passengers shifted bags. "Driver, are we moving?" a man asked. "Not yet." Voss turned from the patrol car. "I told you to clear the stop." "I heard you. My route log records every delay." "You want your name in this?" "My name's already on the schedule." A woman in the second row lifted her phone low. Deshawn saw it in the mirror and said nothing. Mara stood by the bench with Marcus's briefcase under her arm. The leather was wet, the latch half open, the cream folder visible like a warning. "Caleb," she said, "we should document that we recovered materials." "We document at the station." "Then say it on body cam." His eyes cut toward her. Near the bakery, Lena Ortiz wiped rain from the security camera with her apron. Inside, she pulled a tablet from below the register. "Is it recording?" Paul asked. "It records everything." "You want police coming in here?" Lena tapped the screen. The shelter, bus, and patrol car appeared. Marcus sat behind streaked glass. The red dot blinked in the corner. Across the street, Hannah Price stopped outside the federal annex. 27, narrow-shouldered, with a court badge clipped crookedly to her coat, she had been sent for copy paper. She saw the patrol car first, then the man inside it. "No," she whispered. Rain slid onto her sleeve. She knew that face from trainings, where people stood straighter when Marcus Reed entered because he listened as if every word might matter later. She pulled out her phone and began recording. Voss pointed across the street. You too. Put it away. I'm on a public sidewalk. You interfering? No, sir. I'm observing. Then observe quietly. Marcus turned his head inside the car. Through the wet window, he saw Hannah. Recognition crossed his face. He raised two cuffed fingers, just enough to indicate the time. Hannah checked her screen. 7:43 a.m. Call the courthouse before 9, Marcus said through the closed door. His voice came muffled, but Deshawn heard it. So did Lena through the bakery doorway. Mara stepped toward the patrol car. Mr. Reed, who should we contact? Voss snapped. Don't question him through the car. I'm verifying identity. You're undermining primary. I'm preventing a mistake. The word hung there, thin as breath in cold air. Hannah kept recording, her hand shaking until the patrol lights smeared across the screen. Deshawn pressed the dashboard camera's save button. A soft beep answered. Inside the bakery, Lena found the clip and hit download. The progress circle crawled. 12%, 13, 14. Voss opened the driver's door. Last chance, Klein. Mara looked at Marcus's briefcase, then at Hannah's phone, then at the bakery window where Lena stood behind the tablet glow. She got into the patrol car without speaking. As the vehicle pulled from the curb, Hannah ended the recording and dialed the courthouse liaison. The line rang once, twice, 3 times. In the bus mirror, Deshawn watched the patrol car turn toward South Station while the passengers sat. The patrol car smelled of wet vinyl and disinfectant. Marcus sat sideways because the partition left no room for his legs. Rain ticked over the roof. His wrists, locked behind him, pressed into the hard seat each time Mara turned. In front, Voss tapped the dash camera. You logged the stop? Logged at 7:43. And the briefcase? We'll inventory it. At the station, or before somebody says we ignored it? Voss gave a short laugh. You sound like him now. Marcus watched the city blur past the wet window. Bakery awning, bus headlights, courthouse steps getting smaller. My phone is in my right coat pocket, Marcus said. No calls in transit, Voss replied. I ask that you note an incoming call if it rings. From the judge? From my daughter. Mara's hands tightened on the wheel. Voss turned in his seat. You want sympathy, Mr. Reed? No. Then stop handing out details. At the courthouse, Avery Reed stood outside courtroom 3B with her folder hugged to her ribs. The hallway smelled of floor wax and damp wool. A clerk rolled exhibits by. Peter Gaines checked his watch. You ready? Avery looked toward the elevator. He said he'd text. Your father? He always texts when he's early. When he's late, he calls. Maybe the bus is slow. Avery pressed his name. The call vibrated inside Marcus's coat as the patrol car stopped at a red light. The screen lit beside his thigh. Avery Reed. Marcus turned his wrist, but the cuffs caught under his back. The phone buzzed once, stopped, then buzzed again. Mara saw it in the mirror. Caleb. Don't. It's his daughter. It is evidence until we search him. Marcus leaned his shoulder, trying to move the coat without looking desperate. His fingers found only the seam. The phone slid toward the door, its glass wet from rain. May Officer Klein answer and say I'm delayed? He asked. Voss stared through the windshield. No. The light turned green. Avery lowered the phone. Peter watched the courtroom door open. They're calling your matter. My father doesn't miss court. Then something happened. She left a message after the tone. Dad, I'm going in. Front row is still open. She ended the call before her voice changed. At South Station, the rear door opened to fluorescent light. Voss stepped back. Out. Marcus shifted forward. The phone slipped off the seat and landed face up near the mat. Avery's missed call glowed on the screen. Mara reached for it. "Leave it," Voss said. "We can bag it with his property." "I said leave it until intake." Marcus stood using the doorframe with his shoulder. The cuff chain pulled at his sleeves. "Officer Voss, that phone contains a call from someone waiting in federal court." Voss closed the rear door hard enough that the phone jumped on the seat. Inside, a young desk officer looked up. "Charge?" "Failure to identify," Voss said. "Obstruction pending." Mara set the briefcase on the counter. A wet folder edge showed under the latch. The desk officer frowned. "He got ID in there?" Marcus looked at the station clock. 8:11. Voss answered before Mara could. "Not in hand." The clock's second hand scraped forward, and Marcus understood that the empty front row seat had become part of the record too. The intake room had no windows. Marcus noticed that before the smell, old paper, floor bleach, wet coats drying on hooks. A heater clicked above the doorway but gave no warmth. Voss removed one cuff only long enough to fasten Marcus to a metal ring beneath the counter. "Sit." Marcus lowered himself onto a plastic chair. It flexed with a dry squeak, then settled. Cold pushed through damp trousers. One wrist stayed circled in steel. Naomi Ellis stood behind scratched plexiglass with reading glasses on a chain and a pencil tucked into her gray bun. She looked at Marcus's suit, then at the briefcase. "Property inventory?" she asked. "Later," Voss said. "It's wet." "It'll dry." Mara entered with a clear evidence bag. "His phone is still in the car." "Then get it." Marcus looked up. "Officer Klein, the log will show a call from Avery Reed at 8:03. Naomi's pencil stopped moving. Voss leaned on the counter. "You don't dictate my report. I am stating what can be verified." The phone in Pike's office rang. Once. Twice. Then silence. Naomi typed. "Legal name?" "Marcus Elias Reed." "Date of birth?" "June 17th, 1980. "Occupation?" Voss gave a small snort. Marcus kept his eyes on Naomi. "United States Attorney." The pencil rolled off her ledger and tapped the floor. Mara returned with the phone in a bag. The screen lit before she set it down. Avery Reed. No one moved for 3 seconds. Voss turned the screen face down. "Missed call noted." "Please let her know I am safe," Marcus said. "You can make your call after processing." "You have not processed me. You have not verified my ID. You have not opened the briefcase Officer Klein recovered from the scene." Voss's jaw tightened. "Put him in holding." Naomi looked toward the office. "Sergeant Pike said waiting room first if charges aren't final." She pushed the clipboard through the slot. "I need a status." The waiting room was a box with 6 chairs, a bolted table, and a clock that ticked too loudly. Mara reattached the cuff in front, softer this time, and did not meet Marcus's eyes. "I'll ask again about the briefcase," she murmured. "Ask on record," Marcus said. The door shut. Marcus sat. The chair squeaked each time he shifted from the metal biting his wrist. Across from him, a vending machine hummed behind cloudy glass. A candy bar dangled halfway from its spiral, trapped. Through the wall came Voss's voice. "He's performing. Keep saying federal, judge, daughter. Classic pressure." Pike answered, lower. "Then keep it clean." "What about the briefcase?" "Inventory, when I say inventory." Marcus bent forward. The photograph in his coat pocket had folded during the ride. He could feel the corner pressing into his chest wrong. A small, broken point. Avery would be standing now, leaving one chair empty on purpose. The desk phone rang again. Naomi's voice floated beneath the door. Greyhaven South. Yes, I understand. Can you spell the name? Marcus opened his eyes. Voss said sharply, Naomi, transfer it to Pike. A pause followed, thick enough to hear rain on the station roof. Then Naomi spoke again, quieter. Sergeant, it's the federal courthouse asking whether we have a Marcus Reed in custody. The courtroom door opened at 8:34, and Avery Reed did not step inside. Peter Gaines held the brass handle. The hallway smelled of waxed marble and wet umbrellas. Avery, he said. They called the calendar. She checked her phone. No message. Something is wrong. Hannah Price came through security almost running, paper pressed to her chest, one sleeve soaked to the elbow. Mr. Gaines, I need you to see this. Not now. It's Marcus Reed. Avery turned so fast her folder slipped from her arms. Papers fanned across the marble. Hannah held out her phone. Rain hissed on the video. The picture shook, then fixed on the bus stop. Marcus behind the patrol car window, two cuffed fingers lifting toward the glass. Call the courthouse before 9, his muffled voice said. Peter's face went pale. When? 7:43. The bakery has a camera. The bus driver saw it. Avery knelt, but her fingers missed the first page twice. That's my father. Peter was already dialing. Judge Whitcomb's chambers, now. A clerk leaned from courtroom 3B. Counsel? Peter covered the phone. Take the podium. I'll handle this. No, he promised front row. If he's in a station, I'm not pretending this is a slow bus. The line connected. This is Peter Gaines, Federal Court Liaison. I need confirmation whether Greyhaven South has Marcus Elias Reed in custody. At the station, Naomi Ellis held the receiver with both hands. Pike stood in his doorway, peppermint tucked in one cheek. Voss lingered near the counter. Mara stopped by the locker with Marcus's phone in a bag. Naomi listened, eyes on the name. Yes, sir. One moment. Pike extended his hand. Transfer it. He lifted the receiver. Sergeant Glenn Pike. Peter Gaines, Federal Court Liaison. Is Marcus Reed there? We have an individual being processed who provided that name. That individual is the United States Attorney for this district. Voss's arms came uncrossed. Pike said, We have not verified that. Then open his briefcase, check his credentials, call Judge Whitcomb's chambers. Sir, procedure requires. The procedure you describe is why I'm calling. In the waiting room, Marcus heard only pieces. Gaines, credentials, now. The cuff ring had warmed against his skin, but the chair still scraped beneath him. The door opened. Mara stepped in. Mr. Reed, they called. Who answered? Pike. Then listen carefully to what he does next. Her radio crackled. Klein, out here. Mara stayed one extra second before she left. At the courthouse, Judge Whitcomb entered the hallway. Ms. Reed, is your father late? Avery held up Hannah's phone. The still image showed rain on glass and Marcus's two raised fingers. No, Your Honor. He was stopped on the way. Judge Whitcomb watched the clip. When it ended, she handed the phone back as if it had gained weight. Peter, tell Sergeant Pike I am waiting for his call. At Greyhaven South, Pike opened his office door. Mara, bring me the briefcase. Voss moved first. Sergeant. Not you. Mara lifted the wet briefcase from the counter. Water had pooled beneath it. Naomi's desk phone began blinking red again. One light, then two, then three, and this time, every person in the station watched it ring. Mara set the briefcase on Pike's desk like something that might still be breathing. Water dripped from the bottom seam onto a white intake form. The paper darkened in a slow oval. Pike stared at it, then at the blinking phone. "Open it," Judge Whitcomb's voice said through the speaker. Pike tightened his jaw. "Your Honor, we are establishing chain of custody." "Then establish it while I listen." Voss stood by the filing cabinet, hands flat at his sides. The room smelled of peppermint, wet leather, and printer toner. Mara unclipped the latch. "Say what you touch," Marcus called from the waiting room. Voss snapped, "He can hear us?" Pike covered the receiver. "Close the door." Mara did not move. "For the record," she said, looking at the puddle on the form, "Mr. Reed requested verification at the scene. The briefcase was recovered at approximately 7:43. Voss stepped forward. "Don't start." "I already started when I logged the stop." Pike's face hardened. "Open it." The lid lifted with a soft crack of damp leather. Inside lay a folded scarf, a corn muffin wrapped in wax paper, a black pen, and a sealed cream folder. Beneath the scarf was a leather credential holder. Mara opened it. The gold seal caught the light. Naomi whispered, "Oh, God." Mara read slowly. "Marcus Elias Reed, United States Attorney, Western District of Pennsylvania." The office went still. "Next document," Judge Whitcomb said. Mara lifted the cream folder. Its corner was wet, but the heading remained clear. Greyhaven Transit Stop Review. Voss gave a short laugh. "That doesn't mean—" Pike cut him off. "Quiet." Mara turned to the first page. "It references pedestrian stops by Greyhaven South officers." "Names?" Judge Whitcomb asked. Mara swallowed. "Officer Caleb Voss appears in the sample set." Voss looked at Pike. "So this was a setup?" "No," Marcus said from behind the door. His voice traveled cleanly through the wall. "It was a bus stop." Pike reached for the folder. Mara kept her hand on it. "I need to finish reading the inventory aloud," she said. "You need to follow command." "I am." She turned the folder toward the desk camera. Its red recording light blinked above Pike's nameplate. Naomi stepped closer. "Sergeant, the intake camera is on too." Pike looked at the black dome above the file cabinet. Back at the courthouse, Avery stood by the speakerphone while Hannah's video sat frozen on Marcus's raised fingers. Mara removed one final sheet from the briefcase. A subpoena copy. Time-stamped for delivery that morning. Pike closed his eyes. Voss said, "Sergeant, I acted on a call." "You acted after he told you who he was," Mara said. "You weren't primary." "No," she said. "I was present." The word landed harder than blame. Mara gathered the credential holder, the memo, and the phone bag. She walked to the waiting room door and opened it herself. Marcus stood slowly. The cuff chain clicked against the ring beneath the table. "Mr. Reed," she said, "your identity has been verified." He looked past her to Pike's office, to the wet folder on the white paper, to Voss not meeting his eyes. "Then the next question," Marcus said, "is why verification waited until after the courthouse had to call." The cuff key turned with a small, stubborn click. Marcus did not rub his wrist. He let his hand rest open on the table, palm up, as if the skin needed time to understand it was free. A red line circled the place where the metal had sat. Mara Klein looked at it once, then lowered her eyes. "Mr. Reed," Pike said from the doorway, "there appears to have been a misunderstanding." Marcus picked up his phone from the evidence bag. The plastic crackled. A misunderstanding usually ends when facts are offered. Deputy Marshal Owen Carter arrived at 9:06 in a dark raincoat, silver badge clipped to his belt. Peter Gaines came behind him. "Marcus," Peter said. Marcus nodded. Owen looked at the room, then at the cuff ring beneath the table. Who authorized restraint after identity was available for verification? No one answered. Naomi Ellis set the intake sheet on the counter. I logged what was given to me. That sheet stays intact, Peter said. Marcus checked his phone. 3 missed calls from Avery. 1 voicemail. He did not play it. May I have my briefcase? Mara brought it to him. The leather was still wet. He opened it, checked the photograph first, and smoothed the folded corner with his thumb. His breath caught, soft enough that only Mara heard. I'm sorry, she said. Marcus tucked the photograph back inside his coat. For which part? Her lips parted, but Pike stepped in. Officer Klein, not another word without representation. Owen turned toward him. Sergeant, she is not the one I asked. Voss moved his jaw. I followed procedure based on a call and refusal to identify. Marcus looked at him then. I gave you my name. I told you where my ID was. I gave you contacts at the courthouse. I asked you to keep my briefcase out of the rain. Voss's face reddened. You were escalating. I was standing still. Naomi's pencil stopped above the log. Peter stepped closer. Judge Whitcomb is waiting. Marcus glanced at the clock. 9:12. Avery's hearing would be underway, or marked by the empty front row chair. Tell her I will come after I preserve the record here. Pike cleared his throat. Mr. Reed, we can arrange an apology. No need to turn this into. Marcus raised one hand. Pike stopped. I'm not interested in a hallway apology. Voss gave a quiet scoff. Marcus heard it. Everyone heard it. He turned to Naomi. Please note the time I was verified. 9:07, she said. And the time I was first detained? Mara answered before Voss could. 7:34 at the stop. Transported at 7:48. Marcus nodded. Thank you. Owen opened a path toward the lobby. The station had gone quiet. Even the radios seemed distant. Officers who had been pretending to type now watched over monitors. At the exit, Marcus paused by Voss. Rain tapped the glass door behind him. Officer Voss, he said, you laughed when I told you to call the courthouse. Voss stared at the floor. Marcus adjusted the cuff of his shirt over the red mark. The laugh will be in the report, too. Outside, a federal SUV idled at the curb. Marcus stepped into the rain without hurrying. Peter held the door, but Marcus looked back once at the station window, where Mara stood holding the wet intake form like it had finally become heavier than paper. By 11:20, the review room on the 3rd floor of City Hall was too warm for wet coats. Marcus sat at the end of the table with his briefcase in front of him. Avery took the chair to his left after court recessed. She touched his sleeve and whispered. Front row was empty. I know, he had said. Investigator Camille Brooks, 44, wore a gray suit and thin glasses. She placed 4 drives on the table. Bakery camera, bus camera, civilian phone, station intake. Voss sat across from Marcus with a union representative. Pike kept one hand on a legal pad. Mara Klein sat alone, hair damp at the collar. Camille clicked the remote. The bakery video filled the screen. Rain blurred the street. Marcus stood at the shelter, hands visible. Voss approached. Lena Ortiz appeared in the corner. Pause. The image froze on Marcus's open hands. Officer Voss, what threat did you observe? Voss leaned to the microphone. The subject matched a suspicious person call. That was not my question. His representative touched his sleeve. Voss swallowed. No visible threat. The video continued. Marcus placed his palms on the glass. Lena watched from the doorway, mouth opening and closing on the screen. Camille turned. Ms. Ortiz? Lena sat 2 seats from Deshawn, twisting a napkin until its corner tore. He bought coffee, she said. He asked which bus got closest to the courthouse. Did you tell Officer Voss? I tried. What stopped you? Lena looked at Voss, then at Marcus. I thought if I made it official, he would make it harder. For me. For my shop. The napkin crumpled in her palm. So I stepped back. Marcus did not rescue her. The bus video came next. Deshawn's mirror showed passengers turning toward the curb. I saved the delay log, Deshawn said. Bus was held 6 minutes. My camera shows the officer refused to let him reach the briefcase. Voss shifted. A bus driver isn't trained in officer safety. Deshawn's chair scraped back. No, but I know what waiting looks like. That man was waiting. Avery's fingers tightened around her pen. Hannah Price's phone video played last. Her hand shook so badly the patrol light smeared red on the screen. Then Marcus's face appeared behind the wet window. Call the courthouse before 9, his voice said. Camille let the clip end. Sergeant Pike, you were advised credentials were possibly in the briefcase. Pike's peppermint clicked once against his teeth. I was advised of a claim. Were you advised that Officer Klein requested verification? Pike looked at Mara. Yes. Why was verification delayed? Because the scene was active, and I relied on my primary officer. Marcus finally spoke. The scene became active because verification was refused. No one moved. Camille wrote that down. Then intake footage appeared. The wet folder on Pike's desk. Mara reading the credential holder aloud. Naomi whispering. Voss stood frozen in the corner. Lena lowered her napkin into her lap. It had become a small white knot. Camille stopped the video. This review is no longer preliminary. Pike's pen slipped from the pad and rolled until it touched Marcus's briefcase. Marcus placed it back in front of Pike. Finish the record before anyone finishes the excuse. At 6:05 that evening, the city council chamber smelled of wet wool, ink, and coffee left too long on warmer. Every seat was filled. People stood under portraits while cameras waited on tripods. Rain clicked from umbrellas into plastic bins by the door. Marcus sat at the witness table with Avery beside him. His blue suit had dried in patches. The red line around his wrist had faded to a dark band. Councilwoman Diane Mercer leaned toward her microphone. This hearing concerns Marcus Reed's detention and related allegations involving Greyhaven South Station. City Attorney Rusk summarized the resolution. Alan Rusk adjusted his papers. The city denies intentional misconduct, but acknowledges procedural failures. The settlement is $5.6 million. A stir moved through the room. Someone whispered, "For one morning?" Marcus did not turn. Diane heard it. One morning can show what 10 years hid. Then read the complaints, Avery said. Rusk frowned. Ms. Reed, you're not on the witness list. Marcus touched her folder. Diane said, "Let her speak." Avery stood. 38 prior complaints are attached to Brooks's report. Delayed calls. IDs dismissed as fake. Most were marked minor, unfounded, or citizen misunderstanding. Behind Marcus, Lena Ortiz pressed a crumpled napkin into her palm. Rusk said, "Those files involve varied circumstances." Marcus looked at the microphone. Its green light was on. "I had a title they eventually had to respect," he said. Most of them did not. No one wrote for 3 seconds. Voss sat in the second row, eyes fixed on the floor. Pike's seat held only a printed name card. Diane leaned forward. "Mr. Reed, what should this council understand?" Marcus placed the wrinkled bus ticket on the table. At 7:34 this morning, I was a man at a stop with a wet ticket. My daughter was waiting in a courtroom. A bakery owner was deciding whether truth would cost her business. A bus driver was deciding whether a schedule mattered more than a stranger. The microphone caught a small click. I am not asking this city to pay me because I was embarrassed. I am asking why embarrassment was built into the process. A woman in the back raised her hand. My son was stopped there last winter. Diane looked to the marshal. Marcus turned slightly. Let her speak. The woman came forward, holding a cracked phone. Denise Harper, cafeteria supervisor. They said my son's student ID looked fake. He called me from that station after 2 hours. Her raincoat cuffs dripped onto the floor. I told myself at least he got home. Her mouth tightened. I made that sound like enough. Another hand rose. Rusk whispered, "We cannot turn this into open testimony." Diane covered her microphone. It already was. We just weren't listening. When the vote came, no one cheered. The clerk read each name. 7 yes, 1 abstention. The number appeared on the screen like an invoice, $5.6 million. Across the aisle, Voss finally looked up. His representative touched his elbow and guided him toward the side door. A reporter called, "Mr. Reed, does this feel like justice?" Marcus looked at Avery, at Lena's torn napkin, at Denise holding her cracked phone. "No," he said, "it feels like the first receipt." 3 months later, rain returned to Jefferson and Market. It was lighter this time, silver instead of hard gray, but it still tapped the bus shelter roof. Marcus stood beneath it with his hands free at his sides. The old bench had been replaced. A new camera watched from the bakery awning, red light steady. A worker tightened the last screw on a metal sign. Know your rights during public contact. Request identification. Request supervisor review. Recordings preserved 180 days. Lena Ortiz came out with 2 coffees. "I still hate that sign," she said. Marcus accepted one. "Why?" "Because it had to be put here." Across the curb, Deshawn's bus hissed to the stop. "You two planning to block my route again?" "Only ceremonially," Marcus said. "Then keep it under 6 minutes." A small group had gathered. Council staff, court clerks, residents from the complaint files, and officers standing in a careful line. No one clapped when Investigator Brooks stepped to the portable microphone. "Today, Greyhaven begins the Reed Transit Contact Agreement," Camille Brooks said. "Independent review, identity verification before transport when safe, preservation of contact footage, and a civilian hotline audited outside the department." A man near the back asked, "And if they ignore it?" Camille turned a page. "Then the failure is reportable by rule, not by courage." Marcus saw Denise Harper nod, her cracked phone still in her coat pocket. Mara Klein stood near the patrol supervisors, hat under her arm. Her uniform looked pressed, but her eyes had the tired look of someone who had not slept through a whole night in months. When Camille invited department representatives to speak, 2 men looked down at their shoes. Mara stepped forward. "I was present," she said. Rain ticked on the microphone cover. "I heard a man ask us to verify who he was. I saw a briefcase in the rain. I waited too long to do what I knew was right." She looked at the officers behind her. "The new rule will help. It will not replace judgment. If you need a policy to remind you a person has dignity, read it until you do not." No one moved. Then Naomi Ellis, near the curb in a brown coat, wiped beneath one lens of her glasses. Afterward, a young officer approached Marcus with a laminated card. "Sir, we're supposed to carry these now." Marcus looked at the card. It listed the steps. Explain, verify, document, preserve. "What do you think of it?" Marcus asked. The officer shifted. "I think it tells us what everyone thought we already did." Marcus handed the card back. "That is the point." At 5:12, Avery arrived from the courthouse, breath visible in the cold. She wore her first attorney badge clipped to a dark coat. When she reached him, she touched the new sign with 2 fingers. "This is smaller than the check," she said. "More expensive if they follow it." "And if they don't?" Marcus watched the camera light blink above the bakery. "Then the record starts sooner." The rain strengthened. Water ran over the metal sign, catching the streetlight until the words flashed bright, disappeared, then flashed again. Marcus reached into his coat, touched the folded photograph, and for the first time at that stop, did not need to prove why he was there. At Avery's next hearing, Marcus arrived 20 minutes early. He did not take the aisle seat. He walked to the front row, folded his coat over his arm, and sat where she could see him when she entered. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and paper warmed by old lamps. Outside, winter light pressed against the windows. Avery stopped at counsel table. "You made it," she said. Marcus touched the inside of his jacket. "I said, front row." She squared the corners of her file and began. Her voice shook on the first sentence, steadied on the second, and by the third, Judge Whitcomb lowered her pen. 2 weeks later, the final notices arrived. Caleb Voss was terminated after the board found that he ignored verification, misstated the stop, and delayed access to a call. Glenn Pike retired before a demotion hearing, lost command eligibility, and was barred from supervisory work with public contact. Mara Klein stayed. She requested reassignment to training and stood in front of younger officers with the bus video paused behind her. "This is the moment," she told them. On screen, Marcus's hands rested on the rain-smeared glass. "Not when the judge calls. Here, this is where the choice was." Naomi Ellis became the intake clerk who refused incomplete forms. Deshawn's route log went into the first civilian evidence workshop. Lena Ortiz kept a small sign by her register. Camera footage preserved upon request. In April, the first public audit showed fewer transports before ID checks, faster supervisor review, and more preserved recordings. Camille Brooks read the numbers. Councilwoman Mercer ordered the next audit before anyone could call the first one enough. Afterward, Marcus stayed until the room emptied. Denise Harper approached with her son, wearing a college hoodie and holding his student ID on a lanyard. "They believed me last week," he said. Marcus offered his hand. "Good. That's all?" "No," Marcus said. "That's a start." That evening, Avery came to his apartment with takeout, 2 case files, and a small envelope. Ruth Bell had left corn muffins on the counter. Rain tapped the fire escape. Avery set the envelope on the kitchen table. "Open it." Inside was a new photograph. Avery stood outside the courthouse in her dark coat, attorney badge clipped straight, Marcus beside her in the same blue suit. Behind them, the bus stop sign appeared blurred but visible. Marcus placed it next to the old picture of the 13-year-old girl with the crooked certificate. Purple words marked the back. "Dad, front row always." Avery sat across from him. "Do you ever wish you had yelled?" "No." "Not once?" He slid the 2 photographs until their corners touched. "If I had yelled, they would have made the story about my voice." She looked at his wrist. The mark was gone, but both of them knew where it had been. "And now?" "Now it belongs to the record." The kettle clicked off. Ruth knocked once and came in carrying another paper bag. "I heard there was a victory dinner," she said. Avery laughed. "It's takeout and evidence folders." "Then it needs muffins." Marcus turned the old photo over again. For years, it had been a promise he was afraid of breaking. Now it looked wider, a line drawn from one chair to one city corner to every person who had waited to be believed. He set the new photograph beside it. This time, nothing was folded. If this story stayed with you, share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever seen someone treated as invisible until their title, job, or connections forced people to listen? Tell us what happened and what you wish someone had done in that moment. Share this story with a person who believes dignity should not depend on status, uniform, money, or power. And if you want more stories about justice, quiet strength, and real changes that begin with one person refusing to disappear, subscribe and stay with us for the next one. Sometimes the smallest witness, the quietest record, or the calmest voice can change what a whole system is allowed to ignore.